You're listening to WSLR 96.5 LP FM in Sarasota and WBPV 100.1 LP FM in Bradenton. And now, since it's almost 9:30, it's time for Justice Matters. It's brought to you on the third Wednesday of each month at 9:30 by Legal Aid of Minnesota. Legal Aid of Minnesota has been a champion for the most vulnerable in Sarasota and Manatee counties for over 30 years. They provide free civil legal services to residents and by partnering with local lawyers. And their mission is to give everyone, regardless of their ability to pay, a fair shake at justice. Our hosts are Linda Harradine and Larry Eager. Linda has been the CEO of Legal Aid of Minnesota since 2001. She has a master's in social work and a law degree from the University of Buffalo. Larry Eager is the elected public defender of the 12th Judicial Circuit, which serves DeSoto, Manatee, and Sarasota counties. So welcome, Linda and Larry.
Thank you so much for having us. We're happy to be here as always.
You're welcome.
So, as we always say, it's wonderful to partner with the Peace and Justice Report. We love having the opportunity to come in and talk about some community issues. I think one of our main purposes is really to let people know that it's difficult for people to understand sometimes when they have a legal issue, and that there's legal solutions to a lot of different things, such as domestic violence, debt collection, guardianships, etc. And these are really life-changing problems. So it's really important that people know their rights and responsibilities and try to seek help before a small problem becomes a much larger problem. And again, this show really helps the community understand that really the legal system touches almost every aspect of our lives, and the inability to hire a lawyer can make a significant difference for somebody, so that we hope we can provide some resources that are helpful. During today's episode, we're going to talk about some exciting projects with the Newtown CRA and what they're undertaking to improve economic prosperity and diverse housing options in the Newtown neighborhood. In addition to economic development, the Newtown CRA is making Newtown more pedestrian friendly, beautifying homes, expanding Legacy Trail, making park improvements, among many other things. And one part of our segment today is going to talk about our partnership with the city with our title clearing project. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. But first, I want to welcome our guest, Wayne Applebee. Wayne is the Economic Development Manager at the City of Sarasota. In his role, Wayne serves as the city's project lead for the Newtown CRA. Sarasota is very fortunate to have Wayne serving the Sarasota community for over 15 years. His background is very impressive. He's served in a variety of roles, including Criminal Justice Coordinator, Human Services Policy Coordinator, Director of Homeless Services, and Senior Manager of Health and Human Services. Prior to moving to Sarasota, his other experiences included developing a state-of-the-art regional jail in Maine that served all inmate populations with best practices in correctional rehabilitation. He's been a chief deputy for the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, where he oversaw 5 divisions, and he's been recognized numerous times by colleagues and different organizations for his work. So we're just thrilled to have him as our guest today.
And I'm going to jump in here for just a moment and introduce myself. I am Larry Eager, and I am co-host. And I want to, before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that we are unable to provide specific legal advice. This is our annual disclaimer, and that this show is for informational purposes only. Also, we would appreciate any responses that you might have, and if you have any questions that have been raised as a result of our show, I really wish that you would contact us, either me at the Public Defender's Office or Linda at Legal Aid, and also with any suggestions and speakers and topics that you would like to address, since this is really your show. So with that, Linda, I'm going to turn the show over to you.
Oh, well, thank you. So Wayne, I guess let's start first of all what is the Newtown CRA? Can you tell us what that is, how it operates, what it stands for?
Sure. Well, first, thank you to my host, Linda and Larry, and the whole team at WSLR for having me. Excited about the opportunity to share activities going on within the Newtown community and initiatives that the city is leading through the Newtown CRA. So what is the CRA? So the CRA stands for Community Redevelopment Agency, and they're a special district that's allowed under Chapter 163 of the Florida statutes. Communities have special districts all over the state. And in this particular case, the city of Sarasota established the district back in 2008 to essentially create an opportunity for taxing revenue that comes in from that community or that district to be reinvested back in the community to enhance it, redevelop it, those kinds of things. You may have heard of a TIF, tax incremental financing mechanism. It's actually what's the same mechanism that's being used for the Bay project downtown. So basically it's essentially where the established base year of taxes remains the same coming into the city, and then any growth within that district is set aside for the district to reinvest in the district. So there are reoccurring revenues annually. And of course it's the amount of that revenue is based off the property values of the area and the amount of growth year over year. So that is the CRA. The City Commission actually sits as the governing body of the CRA, but they've appointed a advisory board to help advise them on initiatives and projects within the CRA. And so there is a 5-member board of the community who serves as the Newtown CRA advisory board. Includes our chair, Richard Harris, Dr. Rachel Shelley, Jesse Hubbard, Carlos Yancey, and Alexandria Chow. Those are our 5 members, and we meet every other month. The next meeting is March 9th, and at the City Commission chamber at 3 in the afternoon, and the public's certainly welcome to attend. So that's a quick overview of the CRA itself.
So when I know you just named the 5 members, and you said the members are appointed by the City Commission. Are there certain roles that they have to fill, or certain neighborhoods they have to come from? Is there some composition that's required?
Yes. So there is a resolution that creates the board itself and provides its governance and its purpose, and establishes what you're just asking. So essentially the 5 areas are 1 representative who is a resident of the district. So there's just a citizen representative, an individual who is a landowner within the district. So they may not live in the district, but they obviously have an interest by being a landowner. A person involved in urban design, planning, or commercial real estate. A representative of the Economic Development Corporation or their representative, or a person, and the 5th position is held for those involved in banking or finance. However, often when you have advisory councils, as you establish positions, you sometimes don't get applicants. If you create the structure so structured that you might not get an applicant when you have an opening that exactly fills that role. So the commission does, if they have that situation, they have the ability to override those specific seats. But those are the goal and purpose of the positions.
And the advisory board, are they tasked with prioritizing, or are the priorities set by the City Commission and they're implemented by the advisory board, or how does that work? And is there funding associated with it? Because it's some large tasks I know that have been laid out.
So the advisory board itself are non-paid, non-compensated individuals who volunteer their time for essentially making recommendations. They are solely a recommending body to the City Commission, and so the primary funding or dollars that they're recommending are those annual revenues that came in as a result of increased property tax values, which generated increased revenue. So whatever that dollar amount is annually that comes into the district above the base tax year, and of course any carryover that they may have from previous years, those are the revenues in which the advisory board can establish priorities that would then be recommended to the City Commission. Really, it's not the City Commission; it's the City Commission members, but they're sitting legally as the Newtown CRA advisory board agency. Excuse me.
Wayne, can I ask you? You say that the CRA was established in Sarasota, the city of Sarasota, in 2008, and it relies on governmental contributions. Can you give us kind of a guesstimate of, from 2008, what are the annual monies that have been available to the CRA for these projects?
Sure. So I can tell you in the current fiscal year, we actually saw an increase in the annual revenue coming in from the ad valorem tax, and it was $256,000, which was an increase from previous years, which had been roughly around $170,000. Its lowest point of evaluation, it dropped closer to $100,000. So those are the annual amounts that come in. But over the years, obviously not all of those funds have been expended entirely. And so there are some programs that have some fund balance to go with them. So in total, there's approximately about, in rough numbers, $3 million roughly available to the CRA to invest in programs within the district.
And the TIF tax that you were referring to, that's a newly established tax, is it not?
No, it's been around. It's been around since the CRA was established.
Okay.
That's how they established the revenue coming in annually.
All right. Can you go ahead? I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, you may have heard it recently as new because it's also kind of a funding mechanism they're using for the Bay Park. So that's where you might have recently heard about it.
So can you give us some examples over the past, since 2008, of programs that have been specifically implemented with these monies? Sure.
So generally, I've been with the city about 4 months, so I don't have a long depth back to 2008 of all of the things they've done. But in general, things related to improvements to remove blight in the community. So we have a business assistance grant program, which I'd love to talk about. It allows folks who are business owners in the Newtown district to receive CRA funds to improve their storefront, to improve their business from a storefront perspective, safety perspective, lighting, flooring, exterior paint, and
these are actual capital improvements to the business.
Actual capital improvements to their business. And if in fact they are a Newtown resident and their business is also in Newtown, it's an 80-20 split. So they have to provide 20% matching funds, and then the city will provide up to 80% of the funds with a cap of $60,000. So a $75,000 project, if you wanted to maximize the CRA funds that could be available to you, you would have to contribute $15,000 and the city would fund $60,000. Now, if business is in the district, but you live outside of the district, then it's a 50-50 match. So to receive all of the city's maximum cap of $60,000, you would also have to invest $60,000 for a $120,000 project. And so just actually this week, we have sent out flyers to all of the businesses that have a business tax receipt within the city of Sarasota in that district, and all of the property owners of those businesses in the district to highlight the program. We'd love to have applicants for that program. So there have been a number of projects that have utilized that grant. The most recent during the pandemic was actually a couple of food trucks. So there are new food trucks that have been established along the MLK corridor that have been provided with funding from this business grant. So that's one area. Also, another priority for the community that we continually hear is sidewalk and lighting improvements, from a safety perspective, that certain parts of the community are darker than others at night. Sidewalks have gaps and are in need of repair. So actually our biggest funding right now allocated is to a sidewalk and lighting project. And we're actually in this year going to be surveying all of those sidewalks, having professional surveying done. so that we can then begin constructing or replacing those sidewalks within Newtown. Now, we don't have enough funds to do the whole community, so there was previously being done by our transportation folks and public works, establishing a priority of priority list of which sidewalks would be done first. As we have funding, we're also searching for outside grant opportunities to add to the length of sidewalks that we can build. What might be really important for the community, if anybody from's listening to that, is one of our challenges will be after the surveying is we know that we will need to work with individual resident owners of property to have easements, because the current sidewalks are not the width required for ADA compliant, and the city doesn't necessarily own all of that property. So we will be working with homeowners to have easements to build ADA compliant sidewalks throughout the Newtown area.
Now, before we get into the collaboration with legal aid and your program, I'm curious, are you engaging private philanthropic organizations for contributions to this fund, and also other businesses that even exist outside of the area? Has there been contributions within the community where the government is not picking up the difference?
Yeah, so I guess to answer that question in my short time here, we have focused our energy and our time on those available grant opportunities through exterior funding sources, which could be both private and public money. That's a great point, Larry. Actually, last week I did begin my first outreach to the local philanthropic community, not necessarily specifically about the sidewalks, although that's a great opportunity to have that conversation, but really more about creating a vision for the redevelopment in the future. So we'll continue to work with the philanthropic community and private sector in that.
Larry, this is Tom. Could a nonprofit apply for some of those funds as well as a business? I'm thinking like the Newtown Farmers Market, somebody like that.
Yeah. So for the CRA dollars, if you're talking about the business grant program that I just described, that is for businesses. It is not not-for-profits are not included in that grant, that particular grant program. The city has other grant programs outside of the business assistance grant program that I just described. That may be an opportunity, but this particular dollars was really again, because going back to where does the revenue come from for the CRA, it comes back in increased property values. So improving the capital front of paying businesses that pay ad valorem taxes. So the funds were set aside for that versus an entity who already receives the tax exemption.
Thanks.
I'm going to interrupt here and just remind our audience that we're listening to the Justice Matters segment on WSLR Peace and Justice Report. Linda?
Yeah, so I think at this point, I really want to talk a little bit about our partnership with the city, because it's, I think we've made a lot of progress, and it's really exciting for us that the city's partnered with us on our clearing title project. And really what our hope is there's a lot of properties, especially in the Newtown area, where they've been passed on generationally. When someone passes away, it's left to another family member. But if that's the only asset that the family may have, they may not know that they should need to still probate that estate in order to clear title to that home. And so the home is not properly titled, and that causes a variety of legal issues for people. And we've been dealing with this for a long time. If people could end up improperly claiming a homestead exemption on a house, ending up with a tax lien, they may not be able to access certain disaster relief through FEMA if something were to happen to their home because they can't show that they have proper title to it. Accessing home improvement assistance or HUD dollars is also an issue. And one example is also they can't get building permits. We had a client that came in. She was recently widowed, and her and her husband lived in the home for 25, 30 years, and she needed a new roof, and she was seeking some assistance, and the roofer came out and went to pull the permits, and he said, "You don't own your home." And she said, "What do you mean I don't own my home?" And apparently her husband had never put her name on it. He had bought it, and he didn't think it mattered. They lived there together, and so she was unable to repair her roof until we got clear title for her. Fortunately, she found out early on, and she didn't have, many years to go back, but still it was a real issue. You can't improve your property. You can't refinance on your house. And one thing that we've also seen over the years is people that there may be a mortgage on the property and the family continues to pay the mortgage. Maybe grandma passed away, but there's still a mortgage, so they still pay it. They never clear the title. They miss a payment because something happens. The mortgage company will refuse to speak to that person because they don't own the house, and they could end up losing the house altogether. Then you're in the situation where you have two tracks of trying to save someone's house in foreclosure at the same time trying to clear title to it. So there's a lot of complex issues around it. But again, our goal with the city is really to identify some of these properties that may need to have title cleared. So again, they have access to all these benefits and also prevent them from having complex legal issues down the road that can be prevented. So we have been very fortunate that the Newtown CRA, the advisory board, we've met with them. Wayne has facilitated a lot of those discussions. We've worked with Bay First Bank, which is, I think, the first bank in Newtown in, I can't even say how many years. It's been a really long time. They've referred clients to us. And so I just want to talk to Wayne about what the advisory board thinks about this, what the benefits might be to the Newtown area.
Sure. So I think the CRA is very excited about being a partner in this program because of the things that Linda had mentioned, specifically around individuals being able to access, federal disaster relief or other, especially coming out of the pandemic, not being able to prove that you own your home, just cuts you off from the government being able to provide those grant funds to you. And we saw that over the, past few years at a higher level, perhaps than we had before. And for Newtown, it's all about developing prosperity and generational wealth for the community that perhaps a lot of us enjoy in our own life, but perhaps has not always been as available to the folks in Newtown. So here may be the single asset that could provide that family its generational wealth and improve not only their lives, but the community's lives around them. And so we're very happy and very excited to participate in that. I know the ask and the CRA was more than happy to provide as Legal Aid is managing the program. They're going to come across individuals who then have fees to get they'll need title searches and other fees that are associated with getting to that clear title. So while Legal Aid will provide the legal expertise, our funds will help provide those ancillary costs in order to get that title clear. So we're very excited about being a partner with Legal Aid in that.
And we were extremely grateful for that because that isn't often a barrier. We focus on clients that are low income who don't have access to attorneys or to legal assistance. And as you said, the home very well may be the largest asset or possibly the only asset for the family. And so for them to possibly lose that over a clearing title issue would be just devastating. And one of the biggest barriers, they don't have funding to pay for, again, air searches, certain things that are required in order to get it through the process and provide them with clear title. And so we're beyond grateful that they've given the funds because, again, we have the legal expertise, but we didn't have the funding to provide those services. So that's going to help us move this along.
Linda, I might add too, that kind of segues into an additional program we're planning to launch this year with the CRA, and it's the Newtown Homefront Beautification Program, and working with Amarillo Park Neighborhood Association. And this will directly result in an issue for us if folks don't have clear title and own their homes. So the beautification program is a program in its concept now, but funding has been placed aside to basically, again, because the CRA is about removing blight in the community, and lighting has been an issue, that individual homeowners would be eligible for exterior painting of their home, the installation of decorative lamp posts in their yard to help the community overall. But again, as we launch that program, if you're interested in owning, and being a recipient of that, and you think you've owned your home, but you haven't, through the death of a relative, you haven't gone through probate, you haven't cleared that issue, it will be very difficult for the city to provide those CRA funds to somebody that we can't figure out who owns the home. So we appreciate that partnership and look forward to that work.
Right, and that'll be another great way for us. Again, one of our challenges is identifying these homeowners. You can't really go door to door and say, hey, do you own your home? Are you sure that the title's in your name? Any one of us would be a little suspect if someone knocked on our door and said that. So it's reaching out into the community and letting them know that, we're here to offer some assistance if we can, but identifying those homeowners so that we can provide the assistance has been a real challenge. I think that's going to be another great way for us to do that. Another thing that we're trying to do in coordination with this project is also the prevention piece of trying to get the word out in the community to make sure people have wills and advance directives and things in place so that hopefully we're not getting them after the fact. Maybe, grandma or mom or dad passed away several years ago and we're trying to clear title now, but let's get your documents in place. And so that your wishes are laid out, you're not having people argue over the property upon someone's death, and so that it's really clear. And I think that prevention piece is going to be equally as important as we move forward. Hopefully we're going to clear titles along the way and then prevent some issues in the future for some of these families. Going forward, again, the house may be their biggest asset, and the importance of preserving generational wealth is really key. One other thing I wanted to ask you, Wayne, is there also a down payment assistance program through the CRA, or is that something that's?
Yeah, I know we're running short on time, but just highlighting a few other things. The CRA has set aside some funds to work with the Office of Housing and Community Development this year in 23 to reopen a down payment assistance program. So those details will be coming forth through the Office of Housing and Community Development. It's not available quite yet. Some of the other things that the CRA does relative to trying to make a prosperous community is they have some funds set aside for park improvements. So the Martin Luther King Park is the next park within the CRA that is slated for some improvements. So we want to enhance the city's normal funding for park improvements to improve that park. We also do a lot of things around educational or summer camp programs for Newtown youth, really from a long-term preventative perspective of trying to hit those, social determinants of health that are good predictors of their future as they become adults, and trying to make sure kids are engaged. So we do some things with the summer camp program at R.L. Taylor, the SCF STEM coding summer camp, those types of things, in order to invest back in the youth in a long-term way. So all of this is really encapsulated in a Newtown CRA plan, and it was adopted by the Newtown CRA agency and the city back in 2021, so it's not that old. It's available on the city's website. If you go to the city's website, and the page is on the Office of Economic Development page, you can actually read the 100-page plan for the city. My personal goal would be to try to create this plan into a visual rather than a 100-page document, so that we could get the whole community around what is the vision and future.
Absolutely. And is there, and maybe I misheard this or misheard, is there some discussion about Legacy Trail expanding into the Newtown, or we're not sure?
Yeah, that is the Newtown CRA advisory board did in their budget priorities set some money aside to help expand the Legacy Trail, to put its funds along with some other dedicated city funds to expand Legacy Trail. The public works and transportation folks within the city do have a connectivity plan to do that, to connect the Legacy Trail to not only downtown, but also up into the Newtown community, and, kind of through Bobby Jones as well up to UTC. So there is a large plan with that. Our funds have been set aside to help with the extensions within the Newtown community.
That sounds great. It'll be nice to have, the whole city interconnected and via some nice bike trails.
Yes.
Well, I hate to do this, but we kind of come to the end of our hour, and I just want to thank Wayne Applebee so much for the information he's provided, and special thanks to WSLR and the Peace and Justice Show for allowing us this regular segment to discuss the relevant issues of the day. We hope that everyone will tune in again on Wednesday, March 15th at 9:30 a.m. because, as the saying goes, justice matters. Thank you all very much.